All right, so are you ready to dive into this world of shadows and intrigue? Because today we're going to unpack this fictional crime story, and it's called The Man Who Wasn't There.
Ooh, intriguing.
It all starts with this guy, Leon Walker, and he's this small-time con artist, always looking for that easy score.
Classic.
Yeah, so he stumbles across this lost wallet and finds a wad of cash and a business card for this guy, Jonathan Crane.
Okay.
And so it sounds kind of like a classic setup,
Yeah,
right?
it does.
Well, that's where things get kind of interesting. Leon, he decides to step into this new identity. He thinks he's hit the jackpot.
Oh, I see.
But what if the identity that he stole doesn't even actually exist?
Oh, wow. That's the hook, isn't it?
Yeah.
It takes that familiar trope of stolen identity and just flips it on its head.
Yeah.
So instead of impersonating someone who's dead, Leon might be inhabiting a complete fabrication.
A ghost identity.
Exactly, a ghost identity. And that raises some really fascinating questions about, the nature of identity itself.
Right. Like how much of who we are is actually tied to external validation? What happens when those foundations are built on a lie?
Okay.
But before we get too deep into the existential stuff, let's set the scene a little bit.
Okay.
So picture this. A dimly lit bar on 7th Avenue.
I'm there.
Yeah. Some jazzy music's playing in the background. A distant wail of sirens.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's where Leon finds the wallet.
Yeah.
And the source material really paints a vivid picture
Yeah.
of this gritty, noirish world.
That setting is so crucial. It creates this atmosphere of uncertainty, this world where anyone could be a threat.
Right.
And Leon, our protagonist, isn't exactly a criminal mastermind,
Yeah.
The source material describes him as someone who knew an opportunity when he saw one. He's opportunistic, maybe a bit morally flexible, but not necessarily evil.
Exactly. And he certainly enjoys the perks of being Jonathan Crane, right?
Oh, yeah.
He revels in this newfound respect, the ease with which doors kind of open for him now.
For sure.
But it's all built on this shaky foundation.
Right. Absolutely. And that foundation starts to crumble pretty quickly. Leon starts receiving these cryptic messages, like a text with no sender ID that just says, "We need to meet. It's urgent."
Oh, no.
Yeah, followed by an even more unsettling email.
And this email is where things get really dark. It just reads, "You're making a mistake. You don't know what you stepped into. The man you're pretending to be isn't dead. He never existed." Could you imagine getting that email?
Oh, wow.
Suddenly, that lost wallet doesn't seem like such a lucky break anymore.
Right. It's a brilliant twist. Not only is Leon living a lie, but the very identity that he's stolen is a lie as well. He stepped into a void, and that void is starting to push back.
And it gets even creepier. He gets this phone call.
Oh, no.
And this voice, cold and menacing, it just says, "You've been using my name. That was a mistake. And now you owe me."
Chills. That phone call is the turning point. It forces Leon to confront a very chilling reality. He's not in control. He's become a pawn in someone else's game.
He thought he was conning someone, but it turns out he's the one being conned. And to make matters worse, he's being conned by someone who doesn't even seem to exist.
This ghost identity concept isn't just a plot device, It has real-world implications. Think about it. We leave these digital footprints everywhere, our lives documented online. But what if someone created a completely fabricated online persona, a digital ghost? What are the potential consequences of that?
That's a chilling thought. It's like the ultimate catfishing scheme, but on a whole other level. And in Leon's case, this ghost is coming back to haunt him. He realizes that the wallet, the money, the identity, it was all bait, a trap set to lure him into something far more dangerous than he ever imagined.
Yeah, and as we know, fear and isolation make people vulnerable. Leon's cut off from his usual contacts, afraid to trust anyone. He starts seeing connections where there are none, convinced that every stranger is somehow in on this conspiracy.
It's classic paranoia, and the story does such a fantastic job of conveying Leon's mounting anxiety. He's trapped in this gilded cage of his own making, desperate for answers, but terrified of what he might find.
And just when that tension reaches its peak, the story ends with 3 slow, deliberate knocks on Leon's door.
Oh my God.
It's a cliffhanger that leaves you holding your breath, wondering who's on the other side and what they want.
So we'll have to wait for part 2 to find out. But in the meantime, I'm curious to know what stands out to you so far.
Yeah.
What are your initial impressions of Leon? And what are your theories about who might be behind this elaborate scheme?
Yeah, let us know what you think. Welcome back to our deep dive into The Man Who Wasn't There.
Yeah, last time we left Leon kind of teetering on the edge of a breakdown, with
Yeah.
those ominous knocks just echoing in our minds.
It's like the story itself is playing this mind game with us,
Right.
keeping us in suspense, mirroring Leon's own descent into paranoia.
Exactly, and this psychological manipulation, it's far more effective than any physical threat.
Oh, absolutely. Think of the classic interrogation techniques like sleep deprivation, isolation, sensory overload. They all aim to break down that individual's sense of self, make them doubt their own perceptions.
In Leon's case, the source material really emphasizes how quickly he unravels.
Yeah.
Like he starts seeing connections where there are none, convinced that everyone's watching him, whispering about him. It makes you wonder how resilient any of our identities really are.
It's a question that philosophers have grappled with for centuries. Who are we when stripped of our social roles, our possessions, our beliefs? Are we simply a collection of memories and experiences, or is there like a core self that remains constant?
Those are some heavy questions, but they're at the heart of this story.
Hmm.
Leon is literally being forced to confront the illusion of his own identity.
Right.
And it's not just the psychological pressure that's getting to him. He's also physically isolated,
Yeah.
cut off from his usual contacts, afraid to trust anyone.
That isolation is a crucial part of the trap. By stripping away Leon's support system, those manipulating him make him even more dependent on them for information and guidance. It's a classic tactic of cults and abusers. Isolate the individual, break down their existing belief systems, and then offer them a new distorted reality.
It's chilling, isn't it, to think how easily someone could be manipulated into questioning their own sanity. But Leon isn't just like a passive victim here.
Mm.
He's making choices, albeit often impulsive and self-destructive ones.
Yeah, that's what makes him such a compelling character. He's constantly trying to outsmart those who are manipulating him, but in doing so, he often falls deeper into their trap.
Like when he starts digging for information about Jonathan Crane
Yeah.
and finds absolutely nothing,
Oh, wow.
no records, no history, like no trace of his existence. It's like trying to grab hold of smoke.
It's a brilliant metaphor for the elusiveness of identity,
Hmm.
the way our digital footprints can be erased, manipulated, or even fabricated, raises uncomfortable questions about the nature of truth in the digital age.
And then, just when you think Leon is about to completely lose it, the story throws in another twist. A new character named Ava.
Ah, Ava. She's an enigma.
Yeah.
A potential ally, a femme fatale, or maybe something else entirely.
The source material keeps her motivations ambiguous. She claims to know about the collective, about the danger that Leon's in, but can she be trusted?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? Trust is a risky proposition in a world where everyone seems to be wearing a mask, hiding their true intentions.
Right. Ava warns Leon that he's stepped into a game he doesn't understand, that the rules are constantly changing. She tells him the only way to survive is to become someone else, someone they can't control.
It's a radical proposition to escape a fabricated identity by embracing another even more elaborate fabrication. It's almost like fighting fire with fire.
But isn't there a danger in that? Wouldn't Leon simply be trading one lie for another, digging himself deeper into the hole?
That's the dilemma he faces. And it's a dilemma that many of us face in our own lives, albeit in less dramatic circumstances. How much of ourselves do we compromise? How many masks do we wear in order to fit in, to succeed, to survive?
It's a powerful insight. It connects Leon's struggles to our own everyday experiences of identity and self-presentation. We might not be dealing with shadowy organizations and ghost identities, but we all navigate a world where authenticity is constantly being negotiated.
Exactly. And the story doesn't offer any easy answers. It leaves us wondering if true freedom can ever be achieved within a system that demands conformity, that rewards those who are willing to play the game.
Right. The story also hints at this idea that maybe this whole game is just a distraction. What if Leon isn't the real target? What if Jonathan Crane was merely a means to an end, a way to draw attention away from something else, something even more sinister?
That's a chilling possibility. It raises the stakes even higher, suggesting that the forces at play extend far beyond Leon's limited understanding.
And it makes you wonder about the nature of the collective itself. What are their motives? What are they trying to achieve?
The source material describes them as this amorphous entity, a group with no clear hierarchy or ideology. They operate in the shadows, manipulating events from behind the scenes. It's almost like a metaphor for the unseen forces that shape our lives, the algorithms that control our online experiences, the political machinations that influence our decisions, the social pressures that dictate our behavior.
It's a thought-provoking idea, isn't it?
Yeah.
To consider that we might be pawns in a game we don't even fully comprehend.
Yeah.
But before we spiral down that rabbit hole, let's bring it back to Leon.
Okay.
He's still trapped in this web of deception, but he's starting to see the bigger picture. He's realizing that he's not just fighting for his own survival, he's fighting for his very identity.
And that fight is far from over. As we head into the final part of The Man Who Wasn't There, the question remains, can Leon break free from the game, or will he forever be haunted by the ghost of Jonathan Crane?
And for our listeners, as you wait for part 3, here's something to ponder. Have you ever felt like you were playing a role, wearing a mask to fit in? And if so, what would it take for you to break free? To embrace your true self? All right, so welcome back to the final part of our deep dive into The Man Who Wasn't There.
Yeah.
You know, we've seen Leon grapple with paranoia, isolation, in the very nature of identity. But the big question still remains. Who is behind it all?
Yeah.
What do they actually want?
Well, in part 3, the story kind of pulls back the curtain a little bit.
Okay.
But it doesn't necessarily offer, easy answers. It's like the fog clears just a bit, but we're still left with this lingering sense of unease.
Okay, so no spoilers or anything.
Yeah.
But who is the mastermind behind this whole Jonathan Crane charade?
Okay, so here's where it gets really interesting. The puppet master is Jonathan Crane himself.
What?
Or rather, the idea of him. The story reveals that Jonathan Crane never actually existed. He was a fabrication, a phantom identity created by the collective.
Wait, so they just made up this whole person out of thin air? What was the point of that?
Yeah.
To just mess with some random con artist?
No, it's bigger than that. The story suggests that they were conducting some kind of social experiment. They wanted to see who would be drawn to this empty vessel of an identity, who would try to fill the void.
So Leon was just like a lab rat.
Yeah.
A guinea pig in their twisted game.
In a way, yes, but I think the story is also making a point about the seductive power of reinvention. Haven't we all at some point fantasized about, shedding our past and becoming someone new? Jonathan Crane represents that fantasy, but taken to an extreme.
Yeah, that's true. We create online personas, curate our social media images. It's all a form of identity construction.
Right.
But in Leon's case, the stakes are a lot higher. His entire life is unraveling because he built it on a lie.
And that's where the story gets really poignant. When Leon discovers the truth, he's completely shattered. It's not just the fear of getting caught, it's the realization that his whole reality is a sham.
So I'm guessing this is where the collective makes their move.
Not exactly. The story doesn't go for the obvious evil organization trope. Instead, it suggests that the collective might not even be interested in Leon specifically. He was just a means to an end, a way to test their theory.
Okay. That's even creepier. So if Leon isn't the target, what was the point of this whole elaborate scheme?
The story leaves that open to interpretation, which I think is one of its strengths.
Okay.
It forces you to think about the implications. Are we all just playing roles in this grand narrative that we don't fully understand? Are our choices truly our own, or are we being influenced by forces beyond our awareness?
Those are some heavy philosophical questions. But let's bring it back to Leon for a second.
Okay, yeah.
How does he actually cope with this earth-shattering revelation?
He goes through a profound psychological breakdown. He questions his own memories, his very sense of self. The story describes him as a man stripped bare, which is such a powerful image. He's lost everything. His fabricated identity, his ill-gotten gains, even his sense of who he is.
So is this the end for Leon? Does he just give up at this point?
No, there's a glimmer of hope.
Okay.
The story ends with him walking away from the city, heading into the unknown. He's shedding the remnants of his past, choosing to start over.
It's almost like a rebirth.
Exactly.
Yeah, he's been given this second chance.
Yeah.
A blank slate.
But the story also suggests that the past can never be fully erased,
Yeah.
The choices we make, the masks we wear, they all leave their mark.
So it's like a bittersweet ending. He's free, but he's carrying the weight of his experiences.
I think that's a pretty accurate assessment. The man who wasn't there is a story about the allure of reinvention, the complexities of identity, and the enduring power of the human spirit to adapt and evolve.
It's been a fascinating deep dive, full of twists and turns, but also some really profound insights.
Yeah, indeed. And for our listeners, as you go about your day, maybe take a moment to consider the stories you tell yourself, the roles that you play. Are you truly the author of your own narrative, or are there unseen forces at play, shaping your perceptions, guiding your choices? Food for thought, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, definitely. I hope you all enjoyed this deep dive into The Man Who Wasn't There. Catch you all next time.